He's like the devil, isn't he?
No, he's worse.
You can't stop what's coming. Death always wins.
Your world might be gone, but mine isn't. If you let that tower fall, billions of people die.
Do they have guns and bullets in your world?
You're gonna like Earth.
Hello everyone, hope you've gotten out to the movies this week. Today Grandma went to the Dark Tower, based on a series of books by Stephen King, the master of horror as he's termed.
And fantasy.
Okay.
Not just horror.
The film is difficult to summarize, but I'll do the best I can. Basically, it revolves around a boy in New York who's having visions of another world. As it turns out, this other world exists. It's sort of a different dimension, really, because it has different portals which connect Earth and other planets to this sort of central area where there's this dark tower. The dark tower somehow keeps out the forces of darkness. And unfortunately, there is this, only can be described as a devil, this man in black, played by Matthew McConaughey, who is trying to destroy the dark tower to let in the forces of darkness. Now, as it turns out, the only thing really standing in the way of him succeeding is the gunslinger, played by Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, yes.
Who is, as the name would suggest, a gunslinger, and he fights off McConaughey's evil forces, who are again trying to destroy the Dark Tower. This affects the boy in New York because, again, the things that affect the Dark Tower affect Earth and all these other planets. And so if the tower falls, Earth will fall too. So he, again, gets into this different dimension and helps the gunslinger to fight this sort of evil devil guy, McConaughey.
Well, the man in black knows that the only way to destroy the tower is through the mind of a child.
Okay.
So he has been searching for the child whose mind will destroy the tower. Guess what?
Turns out to be this boy.
Yes.
So what did you think of the film, Grandma?
Stephen King's always been one of my favorite authors, and Matthew McConaughey has always been one of my favorite actors. And now I'll have to add Idris Elba to the list because he was very good as the good guy here. And the young man, Tom Taylor, the child with the brain power that was required for the man in black to do his evil. As a child actor, young actor, he was just wonderful. You know, he was. It convinced me. You know, I thought it was very interesting, very fascinating. The story was carefully opened up for us so that we knew, you know, what was going on and what was at stake here. I thought it was fascinating. I just really, really liked it. What did you think?
Well, I think this film has a lot of problems.
Oh dear.
Again, the actors are all very good. Again, I would especially recommend McConaughey's sort of evil performance in this.
Bad
I
guy.
thought he was a really, really good bad guy, or bad guy, or however you want to say it. But he was really good.
Yes.
Again, I would recommend his performance in this film quite a bit. Idris Elba is also quite good. I think that, unfortunately, his role wasn't written very well, and again, it's not probably Stephen King's fault. I think it's the dialogue.
He had a lot of action
film.
to do, but
Well,
not a lot of talk.
The thing I would say is that the story itself is interesting. The concepts of the place and the characters and what they're trying to accomplish. Again, all of that sort of the general outline of this film is, again, I think very interesting. Again, I would recommend that. I mean, if you want to see a very interesting story, this is very interesting. It just was not very well executed at all, though, I don't think. Again, it was quite short, and again, I think that either there was some cut out of this film, or maybe it was cut out of the script and it wasn't ever put in. It almost seems like it was sort of the highlights of a Stephen King story or book, but not really the whole story. There seemed to me that there should have been more sort of exposition. Mm-hmm. There should have been more setting up this story. The beginning of it. Again, it jumped into the story. I think a little too quickly. And again, and then as it continued on, it was sort of like you didn't really get the sort of a momentum going. Again, just the fact that it was sort of shortened, and all of these sort of the action parts emphasized, perhaps, doesn't mean that the excitement and the tension was increased. It's sort of how you're building tension towards a dramatic conclusion. Again, I think the conclusion was, as an idea, wasn't bad, but again, I just don't think that they led you up to it and made you feel it very much.
Well, you're right. There were more. Stephen King wrote several books about the Dark Tower.
Well, again,
there was a whole lot more.
Well,
to the
again,
story.
I don't know whether this was all the books in one movie, or whether it was, again, just the first book and they just trimmed it down to a short one. I don't know. But
there could have been a whole lot more at the beginning of the, telling you more about the Dark Tower.
Again, I think I'm probably impressed by, again, when I'm saying I'm impressed by the setup and the way the story is outlined and such. I'm again probably impressed by the Stephen King story. Mm-hmm. I was not impressed by the script as a whole. I would not recommend it. No.
I definitely disagree with that. I think it was very well done. It's to me, let's say a 1.5 thumb.
A 1.5 thumb.
You're right. It does have some faults. It's not a 2 thumbs, which is for me, practically perfect in every way. So I'm inventing a new rating.
Let's see your half thumb there,
One
Grandma.
and a half. One and a half.
Okay.
1.5. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I would recommend that you go see it.